What's up guys, today we're playing Epic 7 and I had so much fun making my Wyvern 13 one-shot that I decided to also showcase a Banshee one-shot. Now Banshee is the easiest of the very fast hunts that you can complete and usually the one that people do first. It has the least amount of gear requirement, but it does usually take a limited hero. So let's jump right in and talk about how to cleave Banshee. At a minimum, you need 3 characters. You need one character who is going to destroy that first wave. You need a defense break, and you need someone who can kill the boss. Now, at my level of gear, on this team, I can destroy that first wave, but I need to have 3 bleeds on the boss in order to kill her. So we can see here that Rose is going to go, she's going to defense break, and then we need 3 bleeds from Baiken in order to finish. Now what we can do here to cleave this boss a little bit more safely and with a higher degree of effectiveness is to eliminate some of the bleeds that are required and also to make redundant our defense break. So what happens if Rose misses her defense break? Your run is over, that's it. What happens if Baiken doesn't land 3 bleeds? Your run is over. Building upon our first run, what we want to do is make the run more reliable and safer. Now to do this, I'm going to bring in a Leo. Leo does a couple of things. The first thing that he does is he adds 8.4% attack, plus he can carry another artifact for 5% attack, and that increases your overall damage so that you don't have to rely on landing 3 bleeds. The other thing that Leo does is he brings a secondary defense break. So what's important here is that we add additional damage to our run, and then also we add another layer of RNG to help make the run safer. Our first lose condition was the bleed, right? And we're solving that with the damage. Our second lose condition is what if Rose gets resisted and doesn't land that defense break. And Leo solves both of those things, not to quite 100%, but it's going to be pretty darn close. It is very possible that Leo gets resisted, and then Rose gets resisted, and then no one lands a defense break, right? So what we see so far is Leo missed, didn't know defense break, but then Rose comes through, says, you know what, I got this, sit back and watch the boss get destroyed. As you can see here, we landed 2 bleeds, which is quite enough to finish the boss. Now let's see if we can find a couple of more and see what happens if maybe we land 1 bleed, or maybe we don't land any bleeds, and if we can still win under those conditions.
Destruction. Answer my call. Raccoon, fly! Who will stand against me? All is done. How dare you? I can do it! For victory!
And our very second run, we only land 1 bleed, and let's see if we can pull through, and yeah, it's over. There we go. Let's keep watching. Let's see what happens if we don't land any bleeds at all, if we can still pull out the win on our one-shot team.
Unleash my power! A warrior never loses! In Noyes' name. You'll regret facing me. Forbidden spell. Destroy all. Raku, fly! Who will stand against me? You'll regret facing me. How dare you? How about this? For victory. Destruction. Answer my call. A warrior never loses. In Noyes' name. All is done. You'll regret facing me. I can do it! For victory!
And this is a great example so far of kind of what we'll see. Now what we saw in this run is that Baiken did land one bleed, but the boss still survived with 200 HP. So at this point, we can increase our damage by 200, which shouldn't be very much, but the run, I think, should still win. The boss cannot kill Baiken in one turn, which will give us the advantage to doing more damage as we go forward and finishing it out. Now it's kind of ugly, it's not quite a one-shot, but we saw there that we probably missed a crit somewhere, or for some reason we didn't do that extra 200 damage, and that messed up the one-shot, but we still pulled out a win.
Forbidden spell. Destroy all. Raku, fly! Who will stand against me? You'll regret facing me. How dare you? Here it is! For victory!
Okay, we have that Baiken only got the one again, but then we still won, right? That last run was probably an anomaly. We probably don't have 100% crit on one of our characters, and that enabled us to miss. I'll have to go back and look at it afterward. Now let's talk about how we can improve this run and make it even more reliable. So using what we've learned so far, now we're going to try and develop a better team that doesn't need any bleeds in order to destroy the boss. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in Adin. Now this was a very hard build for me because I basically had to get her down to the bare minimum without changing my Baiken. But I'd like to show you this as an example. So Adin brings in an attack imprint. She can also use an attack-based artifact. Now let's see what happens when we run it with Adin. Now Adin brings something very specific, and I'm going to pause it when it happens.
My power.
First round is going to be pretty much exactly the same. You must speed tune this team very precisely because you need Adin to go before Baiken, but not until the second round. So let's see what happens. Same thing, we're going to have Vivian that's going to go first, and she's going to S2. This is what the AI would do anyway. The boss goes, and then we get a defense break from Rose. Now Adin is going to go next, and when Adin goes, she is going to use her S3. The S3 will give you 100% defense break, just like Leo, but Adin brings something else. She gives a 10% increase to her team when she attacks with her S3.
Where are you looking?
So Adin goes, we can pretend that maybe that Rose didn't land that defense break. Adin can give you another chance to 100% defense break. And then we get a Baiken who goes and then destroys the boss. Now, as you saw from that run, that you did not need the bleed. The bleeds did not detonate. Baiken killed the boss without the bleed and without the artifact on Adin. Let's see it again. Now this time we're going to run Adin on complete auto. Now there is a chance, because I didn't speed tune this team, that Adin will get bad RNG and Baiken will cut her. So you have to be very careful when you're running this team that you very precisely time your turn order. You have to go with a Vivian who does a buff, then Rose, Vivian kills. Adin has to go first on that second round, hits the boss, you get your duplicative defense break, she does the buff, and then Baiken destroys. And again, we landed 3 bleeds, but we didn't need any of them to finish the run. Now that we've seen the evolution of Banshee one-shot teams and how to make it as perfect as you can, let's talk about what you need to make it happen. The first one up we have is Shadow Rose. Now you can substitute in Leo for Shadow Rose if you don't have her. Shadow Rose, I think, is going to be a little bit easier to build, but also does not need Molagora. Her S2 gives you 100% chance to defense break for 2 turns, and her S3 enables you to destroy that first wave with your Vivian. Now what you need on her is something around 200 speed, 100% crit rate, and it's very important, and at least 65% effectiveness. Now why do we need 100% crit rate? We want to make the run as safe as possible, so we need to have a consistent, predictable amount of damage, and you will not get that with less than 100% crit chance. She doesn't receive elemental advantage, so she doesn't get that extra 15% crit and the extra damage for being opposite element. If you were to substitute in a Leo, you could bring it at 85% effectiveness, but you'll need Molagora on his S2. You will also need Super Duper Water Gun Shooter, or another type of artifact that helps to increase your attack for your main damage dealers. We have quite a few artifacts like this. We have Warhorn and some side story artifacts, and that will enable you to have the run that you want without your bleed. Next up, we have Leo, and this is going to be a good replacement for Shadow Rose, but he comes with a little bit extra risk and a little bit extra reward. So he has a imprint that gives 8.4% attack to your main damage dealer. This is going to help Vivian kill the first wave. It's also going to help Baiken kill the boss. If you're using another cleaver on the boss that's not Baiken, or you have to rely on that bleed, then this is going to help quite a lot. You do have to put at least +4 into his S2 to make it a 100% defense break. Also, you have to watch because he has a 50% chance to trigger another attack. If you build up his attack too much, then you could trigger the boss to go into a second phase before Baiken or whoever your cleaver is has a chance to go, and then your run is over. Same thing, you're going to want something around 200 speed, 100% crit chance, 65% effectiveness, and then adjust your attack and your crit damage so that you don't put the boss over, but you do enough that your cleaver on whatever gear he has will be able to finish the job. This is another artifact, Card of Small Miracles. It comes from a side story and it increases your attack. So overall, just having this set up is going to increase your attack by like 13%, which is really good, and it's a lot easier to gear up your units. Next up is everyone's favorite girl, Vivian. Now, I use her for a lot of things, so I have her at +15. You don't actually have to go this hard on this girl in order to one-shot Banshee. What you need is a maxed out S2. That way you do as much damage as possible to destroy the first wave without going into the other skills. You're not going to buff more than one time, so you don't need this. Also, you're not going to S1 at all during this fight, so you don't need Molagora into her S1. You do have to have the exclusive equipment for her S2. This is a crucial element that's going to enable you to use your buff and then get the combat readiness and then cleave that first wave. If you do not have this, you will not cut your Baiken or your cleaver, and then your run will fail on the very first wave. You also need Time Matter. Time Matter is going to enable you to reset your S2 and then use it on the first hit for the boss. Now, if you use something like a Dinga's Orb, that will help you to cleave that first wave, but you're going to S1 on the first turn of the boss, and if you get a dual attack, that could bring you into the second phase of the boss when you didn't really mean to, right? It could be too much damage, and then next thing you know, you're fighting little banshees instead of seeing the treasure that you're going to get. So let's talk about what you need to destroy the first wave. You need good attack and good crit damage. You need at least 85% crit rate. Now, because she gets advantageous element, she gets 15% crit when she's fighting water units. So, this is a little bit high because I use her for different things, but you need a minimum 85% for this fight. Speed is going to vary. If you have a bare minimum speed Baiken, you can run her a little bit slower than this. I have her at 231 because my Baiken does have a little bit of speed in his build, or her build, and you don't want Baiken to cut before she has a chance to destroy the first wave. Speaking of Baiken, let's go into her next. I really love her animation. She's been a character that's been out for a really long time, but I never get sick of it. It's our one-armed samurai. She's amazing. What you need on your Baiken is you need to have maxed out S2 and S3. Now, as you can see, I don't have anything into her S1 because she never gets a chance to use it. I also don't have any imprints. It will help you to have critical imprint because it means that you need less gear in order to destroy the boss. You must have her on a rage set. Now what you'll see is that this is a very similar set to what I have on Sigret to one-shot Wyvern. It's amazing. I have more than one so that I don't have to swap the gear around. But you want something around 45 attack. You want low speed, so she has plus 10, which means that I have to have a 230 Vivian. If I could somehow get her down to 113 speed, then my Vivian can be a little bit slower. But you're going to have to do a little bit of trial and error to make sure that your Vivian always goes on that round 1 to destroy the monsters before Baiken has a chance to cut her. At 123, you need to have 231. Okay, and then we need at least 85% crit and pretty good crit damage. The higher your attack, the more bleed damage you're going to do. The higher your crit damage, the more damage you're going to do with your normal strike. You also need to have at least 65% effectiveness if you need the bleeds to kill the boss. Now you can make a build with no effectiveness and just make her hit harder, and then you won't need the bleed anyway. The way that Daydream Joker works is it will do more damage from having high crit rate and high crit damage than it does your attack. So if you are running a build that needs to have at least one bleed, then having high attack will make it hit a little bit harder. If you are running a build that needs to have pure damage, then putting her north of 300 crit damage will be better. But you need to have rage set. It's a crucial element to completing this one-shot team. Now the last person I'm going to talk about is Adin. She is a very good character to have as your second pick. She does a duplicate amount of defense break, so that makes it more redundant. Also, she brings forward the buff that you receive on her S3, giving Baiken 10% more damage. You need to have her go before your Baiken, or whoever your cleaver is, on the boss, but not before Vivian or before your first defense breaker, because this 10% might put you over the top, right? It might make you hit too hard, and the next thing you know, you're in the next phase when you didn't really want to. Now, I didn't know how fast to run her. I didn't know what gear she has, so this is a perfect example of how easy it is to build Adin for Banshee one-shot. I literally ran her with 3 pieces of gear, and one of them is a +6. That's so wild. I couldn't even believe I did it. You need to be faster than Baiken, or whoever your cleaver is, by 10 to 11 speed, but slow enough that you won't cut Vivian on the first turn. You need to have 85% on your crit chance, because she must crit on her S3 to get the 100% defense break. You also need to have 65% effectiveness so that you can land that defense break and you won't get resisted. But basically, as you can see, I literally ran her with a crit chance neck, an effectiveness ring, and then garbage to just bring her up to high enough on these 3 things and complete the run. The artifact that you use here is going to depend a little bit. If you need a little bit more damage to do the boss so that you can one-shot with Baiken, right? So you want to do enough damage where you don't take her into the phase 2, but also enough damage to where Baiken can kill her without the bleeds, then you're going to want to run something that is a damage-based artifact. If your Baiken needs more damage, then you can run some of the artifacts that we already showed, Warhorn, Miracle Card, Super Duper Water Gun Shooter, and that will help you buff up a little bit on your attack. But that's pretty much it. Now, if you run her on this team, it will make your run pretty close to 100%. You should almost never fail. The downside of that is you can't use her for anything else, and she could be useful in other hunts. She could be useful in other content of the game, but you won't have a chance because she's sort of dedicated to that mode. Now for me, I use the Leo. So I run my team with the Leo and the Shadow Rose. It's pretty much 100%. I almost never see it lose. And then I can use Adin for something else. Now another option is you gear her out for this, and then later you just swap them in and out depending on who you have. But she's been really great. I've been really excited to see her progress and see her make this run a 100% success. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that it helped you to manage your one-shot, to destroy that Banshee and get that gear.